She was just the surrogate, until the billionaire's will made her queen. May today's story serve as a mirror to the soul and a light to the heart. May every twist and turn remind us of the strength within us, the power of love, and the grace to rise above life's hardest trials. Amen. Welcome back to Mr. Asher's Stories, where the quietest voices echo the loudest truths. Here, tales of love, betrayal, and redemption shine a light on what truly matters: family, integrity, and the courage to rise. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if you believe in second chances, the strength of motherhood, or the power of doing what's right, even when the world says you don't belong. Let's begin. Mari Brooks stood in the break room of Ridgefield General Hospital, clutching a cup of lukewarm coffee like it might burn away her growing dread. Her shift had ended 2 hours ago, but she was still sitting there, replaying the number she'd seen on her phone. It wasn't the number that unnerved her, it was the name attached: Gerald Park, the lawyer. She didn't need to guess. Her body knew before her mind accepted it. Alexander Kensington was dead. The billionaire, who had paid her to carry his child, was gone, just days after she delivered the baby. And now Gerald Park was calling. Mari never imagined she'd be a surrogate, but after juggling 2 jobs, falling behind on student loans, and facing the mounting medical bills of her aging mother, it had seemed like a lifeline, a one-time sacrifice. 9 months in exchange for financial stability, a new beginning. She wasn't desperate, just stuck. A former teacher with a good heart and a gentle voice, Mari had left the classroom when her mother, Linda, suffered her second stroke. The teaching license was still valid, but the flexibility wasn't. Office temp work paid the bills now, barely, and when the surrogacy agency called with a high-profile case, she surprised herself by saying yes. Kensington Enterprises had been vague in the paperwork. The intended parent was a widower, a well-known East Coast figure who desired confidentiality. The fee was nearly double the average. Mari signed the contract, agreed to a gestational surrogacy, and swore she wouldn't get attached. She met Alex Kensington only twice, once at the fertility clinic and once during a prenatal visit. He was older than she'd expected, quiet and sharp-eyed. Not unkind, but not warm either. Still, there was something thoughtful in his gaze. He had asked her how she was feeling and listened, really listened, to her response. "I appreciate what you're doing," he had said. No one else had said that. Not the nurses, not the coordinators, not even the lawyer. Just him. Labor came early, 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Mari had gone to the hospital alone, texting the surrogacy coordinator from her delivery bed. There was no fanfare, no cameras, just sweat, pain, and the flood of emotion when she heard the baby's cry. A boy, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, healthy lungs, strong grip, full head of dark hair. Alexander Kensington Jr., Xander, the birth certificate said. Legally, she had no claim. She was the carrier, nothing more. She was prepared to hand him over, smile for a photo, and leave through a back exit with her discharge papers and a check. But then Alex Kensington had shown up. He'd been frail but lucid. His presence in the neonatal ward shocked everyone. Billionaires didn't do hospital visits, they sent staff. But he came, and when he saw the baby in her arms, something in his face crumbled. "Would you stay the night at the guest house?" he had asked. Just until the baby's cleared for discharge. She'd said yes, out of kindness, out of instinct, because she was too tired to argue. She didn't know it would be the last time she'd see him. Now Gerald Park wanted a meeting, at the Kensington estate, not a hospital, not her apartment, not even a neutral legal office. The estate. "Mari?" Her mother's voice called from the hallway. Linda Brooks appeared, wearing one of her cardigans in concern. "You okay? You've been in here a while." Mari swallowed. I need to go to Greenwich." Her mother blinked. "Connecticut?" "Yeah." She didn't say more. She didn't say the father died, or the lawyer called, or "I think something's about to go very, very wrong," because it already had. The Kensington estate was a world apart from Mari's neighborhood. The iron gates, the security guards, the cobbled driveway that curved past manicured gardens and century-old oaks. It all looked like something from a documentary about America's old money dynasties. A woman like Mari, in her off-the-rack department store dress and modest flats, didn't belong here. And yet, here she was, holding her breath as a butler opened the massive mahogany door. "Ms. Brooks?" the man said politely. "Mr. Park is expecting you." Inside, the estate felt like a museum. Oil portraits, Persian rugs, marble floors that didn't creak. She was escorted to a study lined with leather-bound books and antique clocks. Gerald Park stood at the hearth, impeccably dressed in a three-piece suit. He didn't waste time. "I'm sorry to summon you like this," he said. "But Mr. Kensington passed away 2 days ago, and his final will and testament names you." Mari blinked. "I'm sorry." "You are named as the legal guardian of Alexander Kensington Jr. and the sole trustee of his estate, until the child comes of age." She stared at him. "Are you sure? I drafted it myself." He handed her a copy. The pages trembled in her hand. They burst into the study less than 5 minutes later. Matthew Kensington, 6 feet of expensive rage in a navy suit, and Isabella Kensington, wide-eyed and trembling. "What the hell is she doing here?" Matthew barked, pointing at Mari like she was a stain. Mari flinched. She's the surrogate," Isabella said quietly. Gerald raised a hand. "She's also the trustee of the estate and legal guardian of your brother." "My brother?" Matthew spat. "That infant is a science experiment. He's not part of this family, and she—" He turned to Mari. "You're nothing, a paid womb. You had your check. This is over." Mari's throat closed. She couldn't speak. But Gerald Park could. "Mr. Kensington's will is legally binding. You are welcome to contest it in court, but I advise against slander. Ms. Brooks is acting under full authority of the deceased." Isabella looked torn. "Is this true?" Gerald nodded. "I have video documentation of Mr. Kensington's mental state at the time of the will's amendment. He was sound of mind and deliberate." Matthew paced like a caged wolf. "This isn't over. You'll regret this." He stormed out. Isabella lingered. Her eyes met Mari's for the briefest moment. Then she, too, turned and left. Mari was left standing in that library of a dead man's secrets, holding a will that upended her entire reality. A few days ago, she was a surrogate with a payday. Now, she was the mother, at least in practice, of a billionaire's heir, and the enemy of his children. Like what you're hearing, things are just getting started. A courtroom war is on the horizon, and Mari will have to decide what she's truly fighting for: power or love. Make sure to keep watching, and share this story if you believe family isn't always defined by blood. Mari didn't remember how she made it out of the Kensington estate that day. Her hands had been shaking the whole ride back to her apartment, her mind spinning like a wheel that refused to stop. When she got home, she walked straight into her mother's arms. Linda held her silently, like she knew something enormous had shifted. "You don't look like someone who just got rich," her mother whispered. "I didn't," Mari murmured. "I inherited a war." The next morning, Gerald Park knocked on her door in person. He didn't come with more legal threats, though. He brought an envelope. "This was from Alex," Gerald said quietly. "He wrote it the week before he died. For you." The envelope was thick, sealed with a wax stamp. Inside was a single handwritten letter, dated and signed by Alexander Kensington himself. "Mari, I imagine if you're reading this, I'm already gone. I'm sorry I didn't get to explain this to you face to face. You deserve that much at least. You showed more decency and honesty in 9 months than most people have shown me in my entire lifetime. I've made a lot of mistakes. My children, Matthew and Isabella, were raised in privilege but starved of principle. That's on me. They never understood that wealth is a responsibility, not a right. I had hoped this child, our child, might grow up in a different environment. I chose you because you didn't come from power. You came from grace. That's what this baby needs. I've named you guardian and trustee because I trust you, not to run an empire, but to protect a life. And in doing so, protect a legacy. Forgive me if this burdens you, but I believe in you, Mari. Take care of him, and take care of yourself. Ak. Mari folded the letter with trembling hands. She didn't know whether to cry or run. She felt both chosen and cursed, and still, the baby needed feeding. The media got wind of the story within days. Billionaire's baby born by surrogate days before his death. Who is Marion Brooks? The unknown woman now controlling the Kensington empire. War brewing over Kensington will. Children 5S. Surrogate. Reporters camped outside Mari's building. Cameras flashed at her mailbox. A neighbor knocked one evening to offer a prayer, and not so subtly ask how much she was getting. Mari had to escape. Gerald arranged for her and baby Xander to move into the guest house on the Kensington estate grounds. It was well guarded, private, and more than Mari had ever imagined for herself. Marble counters, linen drapes, imported cribs. The fridge was full before she even moved in. But it still wasn't home. Mari paced the floors every night, feeding the baby by soft nightlight. She sang lullabies under her breath and whispered promises to the tiny human she'd once planned to hand off like a gift. Now, she couldn't imagine doing so. Every day, Xander looked more like his father. The same dark eyes, same furrow in his tiny brow when he didn't like his bottle. She'd never been a mother, never wanted to be, but now she couldn't imagine being anything else. The knock came at 7:43 a.m., 2 weeks after Alex's funeral. Mari opened the door to find a stranger in a pinstripe suit, holding a thick envelope. "Miss Brooks," he said, "you've been served." It was a summons. Matthew Kensington was formally contesting the will. He was claiming undue influence, arguing Mari had manipulated a vulnerable old man into naming her as trustee. There were also rumors swirling about a possible sexual relationship. Surrogate seduced billionaire, one tabloid hinted. A photo of her, blurry and taken through a car window, accompanied the article. Mari felt sick. She wasn't a seductress. She wasn't a thief. She was a woman who'd done a job and been left with a child and a storm. Gerald Park was calm. Too calm, Mari thought, as he flipped through Matthew's filing in his office. "This was expected," he said. "Their team is aggressive. They're going to throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks." "Can they take him away?" Mari whispered, motioning toward the baby in the bassinet. "Not if we do this right," Gerald said. "Alex's will is clear. His capacity was sound. You're already listed as guardian, but it's going to be a war." They filed their own response within days, complete with Alex's medical records showing cognitive stability and a sworn affidavit from Gerald himself confirming the testator's intent. The first court hearing was scheduled for late October. Mari didn't know how to prepare for it. She didn't even know what to wear. "I used to wear cardigans and flats to teach second grade," she told her mom one night. "Well," Linda said gently, spooning soup into her lap, "maybe it's time you learned how to wear power." Mari didn't know much about business. That had never been her world. But as the legal trustee of the Kensington estate, she now held majority control over Kensington Enterprises, at least on paper. Which meant she was expected at the next board meeting. Gerald drove her into Manhattan. The firm's headquarters loomed over Fifth Avenue, a skyscraper of steel and glass that made Mari's palms sweat just looking at it. Inside, everything smelled like money. Polished concrete, fresh leather, filtered air. The boardroom held 10 people, most in suits that cost more than Mari's rent. At the head of the table sat Matthew, in his element. Mari sat across from him, heart thudding. She wore her best navy dress, hair neatly pulled back, nerves hidden beneath practiced calm. "Let's begin," Matthew said. "First item, divestiture of the Latin America division. It's bleeding capital, we sell. Vote." Mari's voice cracked, but she found it. "No." The room paused. "I beg your pardon?" Matthew said. "I said no," she repeated. Alex was planning a restructuring, not a sale. I read his memo from July. He wanted to reinvest. Several board members turned toward her. "I spoke with Gerald," she added, "and with Kensington's chief analyst. Selling would trigger a cascade of international tax penalties." Matthew's jaw tightened. Mari didn't gloat, but she didn't apologize either. The vote was postponed. After the meeting, one of the older board members, Mr. Strauss, approached her privately. "You read the quarterly reports?" he asked. "Twice," Mari said, clutching her binder. He nodded once. "Good." She walked out of that boardroom a little straighter. 3 days later, Isabella came to the guest house unannounced. Mari answered the door holding baby Xander, who was spitting up formula. "I don't have cameras or staff," Mari said, stepping aside. "But if you're here to scream, I'll ask you to come back after nap time." To her surprise, Isabella smiled softly. "I'm not here to scream." They sat in the kitchen. Mari offered tea. Isabella accepted but barely touched it. "I just wanted to see him," Isabella said quietly. "I don't know why. Maybe to see if he looks like my father." Mari handed her the baby. Isabella cradled him like glass. Her eyes welled with tears. "I'm not angry anymore," she said. "Confused, yes. But I think he was trying to do the right thing. Your brother doesn't think so." "My brother doesn't think, he reacts." Mari smiled faintly. "You know what hurts the most?" Isabella whispered, eyes on the baby. "It's not the money, it's not the house. It's that he didn't tell me. He didn't trust me enough to explain." Mari reached across the table, placing a hand on hers. "I didn't know either," Mari said. "He just left me a letter." Isabella looked at her. "You don't seem like someone who wants this." "I don't," Mari said honestly, "but I'm not walking away." That honesty seemed to soften something in Isabella. "I hope you don't," she whispered. I think he needs you." Mari didn't know if she meant the baby or the legacy. By October, the estate had become a fortress. The guest house where Mari and baby Xander stayed was surrounded by hedges taller than a man, patrolled by private security. Mari had initially resisted the idea. She wasn't a prisoner after all. But after the media frenzy, the legal summons, and the sudden interest in her past life, she had no choice. People were digging. An old high school friend texted out of the blue, asking for an exclusive interview. Her former landlord had been approached by a reporter asking if Mari had ever been in trouble with the law. She hadn't, but the implication stung. "Matthew is playing dirty," Gerald warned her. "They're trying to taint you in the court of public opinion before the legal battle begins. He's trying to make me look like I don't belong here." "Because he knows you do." Mari's mother had been reluctant to visit the Kensington estate. "I'm not a silk sheets kind of woman," Linda had muttered. "I like my coffee burnt and my carpet stained." But when the media frenzy spilled into Mari's old neighborhood, and a man claiming to be from a local newspaper snapped a photo of Linda through her kitchen window, she packed her bags. She arrived on a chilly Wednesday afternoon, stepping out of the hired car with her floral rolling bag and a scowl. "Well," she said, adjusting her coat, "I guess this is better than assisted living." Mari laughed. For the first time in days, Linda made herself comfortable quickly. She fussed over the baby, cleaned the kitchen, these rich folks don't scrub, behind appliances, and slipped gentle wisdom into Mari's conversations. "You look tired," she said one night, as Mari rocked the baby. "I am," Mari whispered. "I'm not sure I'm strong enough for this." Linda touched her hand. "You're stronger than you think." The girl who used to walk 2 miles in the snow just to get to school on time. She's still in there. Mari closed her eyes. "I was just supposed to help bring him into the world," she murmured. "Now I'm raising him." Linda didn't hesitate. "Then raise him right." By now, baby Xander had become a national fascination. Some media outlets romanticized it. Billionaire's final gift, the baby he left behind. Others turned vicious. Gold digger guardian. Is Mari Brooks gaming the system? Social media, too, had taken sides. Some called her brave. Others called her a grifter. Even the nursery became a talking point. A journalist published photos of the renovated guest house, the handmade mobile, the donated books from a Connecticut library Mari used to volunteer at, and speculated that Mari was constructing an image of maternal virtue to manipulate the courts. Mari couldn't believe it. "I fed him with a bottle I bought at Walgreens," she muttered one day. "How is that manipulation?" Gerald chuckled. "Perception is everything, but so is truth, and we have that." Still, Mari began preparing. She took parenting classes, met with a Kensington pediatrician to learn about postnatal care. She even started studying the family trust documents Alex had left behind, reading them late into the night while the baby slept beside her crib. She wasn't playing a role. She was becoming it. And then the past came knocking. A man appeared at the estate gate asking for Mari by name. He claimed to be her ex-boyfriend. Security refused him entry. The next day, a gossip blog posted a tell-all from someone calling himself Jake, the surrogate's ex. It was filled with half-truths and exaggerations, claims that Mari always wanted a rich man, that she once talked about owning a mansion, that she lied about being on birth control. Gerald's jaw tightened when he read it. "We'll issue a cease and desist," he said, "and contact the platform." Mari just stared at the screen. "I dated him for 6 months. He was jealous and bitter. I left when he shoved my brother over a poker game." "You don't need to explain, Mari." "Yes, I do," she snapped, "because they're making me a villain. And I'm just trying to protect a baby." Linda wrapped an arm around her. "The truth is patient," she said. "Let them scream. You keep standing." At the next Kensington Enterprises board meeting, Matthew made his move. "I'd like to motion for a temporary freeze on trustee privileges," he said smoothly, "pending the outcome of the probate trial." "On what grounds?" Mari asked. "On the grounds that Miss Brooks is a destabilizing force. She's an unqualified guardian interfering in corporate decisions." Mari stayed calm. "I'm executing my fiduciary duty, as outlined in the charter your father signed," she said. "Unless you have proof of negligence, the trustee clause stands." Matthew smirked. "Then maybe we should look deeper." He pulled out a stack of papers. "These," he said, "are Mari's bank statements, overdraft fees, late rent payments, and one suspicious wire transfer to a private attorney 6 years ago." Mari flushed. "That transfer was to pay for my brother's legal defense," she said, meeting the board's eyes. "He was falsely accused. The charges were dropped." A pause. Then Mr. Strauss leaned forward. "She didn't steal company funds," he said. "She used her own. Unless you have more, Mr. Kensington, I suggest we continue the agenda." Matthew's face darkened. But the motion died. Mari exhaled, slowly. She had survived another ambush. That night, Isabella returned to the guest house. Mari expected another conversation about the baby. Instead, Isabella held out a folded piece of paper. "I found this in my father's private drawer, in a folder labeled Trust." It was a DNA report. Alex Kensington had taken tests. For Matthew. For Isabella. And neither child was biologically his. Mari's breath caught. Isabella's voice shook. "I don't understand. Did he know all along?" Mari nodded. "He did." Gerald confirmed it. "He never told you?" "No." Tears welled in Isabella's eyes. "He still raised us, paid for school, walked me down the aisle when I got married, and he still changed his will. He wanted a legacy that wasn't built on lies," Mari said gently. "That's why he named you in the trust, not for who you were by blood, but for who you were." Isabella looked at the baby sleeping in the next room. "I want to help," she whispered, "whatever that means. I'm not like Matthew." Mari touched her arm. "I believe you." And in that moment, something shifted. The war was no longer two-sided. It was becoming a triangle, and the bonds between women were beginning to defy the bloodlines that had always ruled the Kensington name. By November, baby Xander had become more than a child. He was a headline, a hashtag, a symbol. Baby heir. Surrogate queen. Mari versus Matthew. Daytime news anchors debated whether a surrogate should ever be allowed to raise a child she didn't conceive biologically. Legal pundits argued over Connecticut's surrogacy laws. Morning shows ran features titled, "The Billionaire's Baby, Legacy or Leverage." But to Mari Brooks, he was just a baby. He still woke up twice a night, still drooled on her shirt, still cried when the wind blew too hard. She kept him off social media. No pictures, no statements. But someone leaked a photo anyway, a grainy shot of Mari pushing a stroller through the estate gardens. The baby's face was blurred. Mari's was not. "She's playing dress-up," one commentator sneered. "Look at her, pretending to be a duchess." The dress in question was from a thrift store. Gerald was furious. Mari was tired. Linda just shook her head. "This country loves to lift up its billionaires, until a woman from the wrong side of town gets near their money." Harold Miller, Matthew's personal attorney, was a shark in a tailored suit. He had no time for subtlety. In his formal filing to the court, Harold accused Mari of exploiting her position, fabricating intimacy with the deceased, and psychologically manipulating a grieving father to be into making her trustee. He included the Jake tell-all, old photos of Mari's high school apartment, and witness affidavits from former office co-workers describing her as quiet, ambitious, and, strangely, calculating. "They're building a character assassination case," Gerald warned. They can't touch the legal structure of the will, so they're trying to destroy your credibility as guardian. Can they win? Mari asked. Only if we blink. The probate hearing began on a crisp Thursday morning. Mari entered the courthouse holding her mother's hand with Gerald at her side. She wore a simple navy pantsuit. No makeup, just quiet resolve. The courtroom was packed. Journalists lined the back. Every seat was filled. On the other side of the aisle sat Matthew, flanked by Harold and 3 junior associates. Isabella wasn't with them. The judge, Elaine Thompson, presided with stern professionalism. "We are here to determine the validity of the will of Alexander Kensington," she began, "and to assess the claims of undue influence brought forth by the late Mr. Kensington's son." Opening statements were made. Harold was slick, charismatic. He painted Mari as a clever manipulator, a woman who had burrowed her way into a dying man's favor and replaced his legacy with herself. Gerald rose slowly. "Your Honor," he said, "this case is not about gossip. It is about a man's last legal wishes, properly documented and notarized, under no coercion. This surrogate mother, this guardian, never asked for power. She was entrusted with it, and that matters." Mari exhaled. The war had begun. Mari took the stand the next morning. The room quieted as she sat behind the witness table. Baby Xander, thankfully, was at home with Linda and a court-approved nanny. Harold rose with his weaponized politeness. "Miss Brooks, you signed a contract stating you would have no legal or emotional claim to the child you carried, correct?" "Yes," Mari said. "And yet, you now live in the Kensington estate, hold trustee power, and are effectively functioning as a parent." "That wasn't my plan," she said. "But the child's father asked me to stay, and then he died. He left me a letter." "We'll get to the letter. But tell me, did you at any point tell Mr. Kensington you were struggling financially?" "I told him I was working 2 jobs. So he knew you were vulnerable. I was honest. That's all." Harold leaned forward. "And you're saying that didn't influence his decision to hand you hundreds of millions of dollars in control?" "I'm saying he trusted me to take care of his son." The courtroom murmured. Gerald stood. "Objection. Counsel is editorializing." "Sustained," Judge Thompson said. Harold tried a new angle. "Did you ever have a romantic or sexual relationship with the deceased?" Mari froze. "No," she said firmly. "Never. And yet he changed his will for you." "For the baby," Mari said. "I just came with the package." Isabella Kensington arrived on day 3 of the trial. She sat alone, in the middle row, eyes shadowed. During recess, she approached Gerald. "I want to testify," she said. Gerald arched an eyebrow. "In what capacity?" "As someone who read the letter my father left Mari, as someone who watched him plan this quietly for months, and as someone who just learned she's not actually his biological daughter." He blinked. "You're ready to say that on the record?" Isabella nodded. "The truth doesn't care if it's ugly, it just is." When she took the stand, the room fell silent. She spoke evenly. "My father told me once, 2 years ago, that he wanted to do better the second time, that he'd made mistakes with us." Harold stood. "Miss Kensington, you stand to gain or lose inheritance based on this case. Wouldn't you say you're biased?" "I'm biased toward decency," she said. "Mari didn't trick anyone. My father watched her, trusted her, and if you'd met her, you'd understand why." She looked directly at Mari. "My father didn't choose her because she manipulated him. He chose her because she reminded him of who he could have been if he hadn't spent so long chasing status." The letter, Alex Kensington's handwritten message, signed and dated, was allowed into evidence. Gerald read it aloud in court. It wasn't long, but it was devastating. "To whom it may concern, I, Alexander Kensington, of sound mind and clear intention, name Mari Brooks as guardian and trustee of my son Alexander Jr., because she is the only person I trust with his life and future. This is not a whim. This is not a manipulation. This is my choice and my legacy. Let it stand." Signed, Alex K. The courtroom stilled. Even Matthew flinched. Mari bowed her head. It was no longer about power. It was about a dying man's final plea. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Reporters begged for comment. Matthew finally gave one. "She lied," he growled. "She played my father like a fiddle. I'm not going to stop until justice is served. But as he turned away, a photographer caught something raw in his face. Not anger, grief. A complicated, bitter grief. That night, alone in his penthouse, Matthew stared at an old photo. Him at age 10, holding a model jet, his father's hand on his shoulder. "You were supposed to make me your legacy," he whispered. And then he shattered the frame. That weekend, Mari got a call from Child Protective Services. An anonymous report had been filed accusing her of neglect, citing unsafe sleeping conditions, excessive media exposure, and lack of emotional stability. They had to conduct a home visit. Mari's heart stopped. The CPS worker arrived Monday morning. She was kind, but firm. Took photos. Asked questions. Linda stood tall through it all. "This child has been loved from the second he took his first breath," she said. "And I don't care how rich this house is. His real safety is in this woman's arms." Mari nodded through tears. 2 days later, CPS closed the case. No findings. No concerns. But the fear lingered. Matthew had crossed a line. Now, he wasn't just fighting for money. He was trying to take the baby. Mari sat with Xander in the garden that evening, wrapped in a soft blanket, the last rays of sun glinting off the silver fountain. He was nearly 4 months old now. She remembered the weight of him in her arms the day he was born. Just a heartbeat in her chest then. A future for someone else. Now he looked up at her and smiled, gummy and perfect. "You didn't ask for any of this," she whispered. "Neither did I." He cooed. "But we've got it. All of it, and I'm not letting anyone take you away." She kissed his forehead. And just like that, she wasn't afraid anymore. After the letter, after the testimony, after CPS cleared Mari of wrongdoing, a silence fell over the Kensington estate. Not peace, but the kind of quiet that comes before a second storm. Matthew hadn't spoken publicly again, but that didn't mean he'd stopped fighting. His attorneys were now pushing for a full psychiatric evaluation of Mari, citing the psychological strain of sudden wealth and unexpected guardianship. When Gerald broke the news, Mari laughed bitterly. "They're calling me unstable now?" Gerald folded his hands. "It's not about truth, it's about pressure. If you break, they win." "But I'm not going to break," Mari said softly, rocking baby Xander as he slept. Not for him. Not for any of them. Late one evening, while sorting through Alex Kensington's personal effects with the estate's legal assistant, Mari discovered something unexpected, a sealed envelope marked, "For trustees' eyes only." Inside was a notarized codicil, a small amendment to the will. It didn't change Mari's role as guardian, but it did outline a conditional clause. In the event of contestation or litigation from heirs, the trustee shall have sole discretion over the timing and access to estate disbursements, including personal inheritance, left to Matthew and Isabella Kensington. Mari's eyes widened. It meant that as long as the legal challenge continued, she could withhold their trust payouts. Not to be punitive, but to protect the estate. Gerald examined it closely. "This is enforceable," he confirmed. "It gives you leverage." "They'll call it revenge," Mari whispered. "Then don't use it out of spite," he said. "Use it as protection." The next day, Mari received a visitor, Matthew, unannounced, unexpected. She didn't open the door at first, but curiosity and the quiet voice of justice told her to face him. He stood there with his tie loosened, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. "I just came to talk," he said. Mari motioned for the guards to stand by but nodded. Inside the guest house, Matthew walked like a ghost. Noticed the toys, the baby monitor, the half-finished baby blanket draped over the couch. "This was never supposed to happen," he said finally. "I didn't plan any of it," Mari replied. "She was supposed to be mine, the company, the future, all of it. I spent my life preparing for it. And he gave it to you. He gave it to his son. Don't play semantics with me." He leaned forward, anger rising. "You want to play mother? Fine. But don't pretend you're family. You're the help." Mari stood up. "Get out." Matthew's nostrils flared. "You know I can break you. You already tried. And I'm still here." For a moment, silence. Then Matthew's eyes dropped to the floor. When he looked up, there was something else in his gaze. Pain. "I just wanted him to love me." Mari didn't reply. She didn't have to. Matthew walked out. This time, he didn't slam the door. While the courtroom drama raged, Kensington Enterprises found itself in uncertain waters. Investors were jittery. Stock had dipped slightly. Journalists speculated about leadership instability. A leak suggested that Matthew had used company funds to pay a private investigator to dig into Mari's background. Mari confronted the board with proof. Mr. Strauss backed her. If he's using company funds for personal vendettas, we need an internal audit. A motion passed. Matthew was temporarily suspended from his executive duties pending investigation. When he received the email, he threw his laptop against a wall. He wasn't just losing his inheritance. One morning, Isabella returned with a gift. A painting, done by her. It showed baby Xander curled in Mari's arms, both of them surrounded by sunlight. The title scrawled at the bottom, Inheritance. I wanted to say thank you, Isabella said softly. Mari blinked. For what? For not destroying us. For not using what you know to humiliate us. You had every right to. Mari touched the frame. I'm not here to destroy anything. I just want to protect him. Isabella nodded. You're a better person than I was raised to be. Later that week, a revelation broke in the press. An anonymous source leaked the truth about Matthew and Isabella's parentage. The internet exploded. Kensington heirs not biologically related to patriarch. Shocking DNA twist in Billionaire will case. Matthew was livid. He blamed Mari, but she hadn't spoken to anyone. Gerald suspected someone from inside Matthew's own circle had leaked. It may be out of spite, or maybe to pressure him into settling. Wow, with the narrative shifting and public sympathy leaning toward Mari, the tide was turning. Even the judge took note. In court, she said, let's be clear, biology may dictate bloodlines, but it does not dictate legacy. The testator's wishes will be honored, unless irrefutable evidence proves undue influence. So far, none has. Harold sat back, pale. After weeks of silence, Mari called for a press conference, not to defend herself, not to throw stones, to speak directly to the world. She stood at a podium outside the courthouse, baby Xander cradled in her arms, Linda beside her. I didn't choose this, she began. I didn't plan for this. But I will not walk away from a child who needs protection, from a legacy I was entrusted with, or from the truth. I was paid to carry this child, but love doesn't operate on contracts, trust doesn't come with a paycheck, and integrity, that's earned. She looked at the cameras. To the Kensington family, I say this, I am not your enemy. I am his advocate. The clip went viral, and public opinion sealed like concrete around her. If this story has touched you so far, if you believe that character matters more than class, and love more than legacy, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Asher Stories. The war may be heating up, but the battle for what's right is just getting started. On the eve of the final probate trial segment, Matthew's legal team issued a surprise subpoena, a deposition of Mari's younger brother, Trevor Brooks. Trevor had a past, not criminal, but rocky, a DUI at 19. A dismissed trespassing charge at 22. He'd since cleaned up, was in trade school, and hadn't touched a drop in years. But that didn't matter to Harold Miller. Mari met her brother outside the courthouse, arms folded. I didn't want to cause problems, Trevor said. I swear, I thought they were going to ask me about you helping me back then. Not drag me in like I'm some felon. You're not, Mari said firmly. Trevor glanced down. Do you think I'm hurting your case? Mari took a breath. You're my brother. You needed help. And I helped. That's called family. She hugged him tight. You don't owe anyone shame. Especially not the Kensingtons. After court adjourned that day, Judge Elaine Thompson asked to speak privately with the attorneys, and Mari. In chambers, the judge removed her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. This is one of the most emotionally charged probate cases I've ever seen, she said. And yet, Ms. Brooks, you've carried yourself with grace I don't often see in trustees, let alone guardians. Mari blinked. Thank you, Your Honor. I don't usually offer personal commentary, but I think you need to know something, Judge Thompson continued. The court isn't here to weigh love. We're here to weigh law. But sometimes, when love and law align, we don't ignore it. Mari didn't cry, but her hands trembled when she left the judge's office. The day before the ruling, Matthew Kensington lost control. In a meeting with his remaining allies, a PR consultant, one of his attorneys, and a close family friend, he threw a folder across the room. "She took everything." His voice cracked. The others said nothing. "She took my father, my company, my name. And now what? I walk away with nothing while she raises my father's son like she's the widow." "She was the surrogate, not the wife," someone offered gently. That only enraged him more. He chose her over me, and there it was. The truth that had haunted Matthew since he heard the will read aloud. Not the money, not the company. It was that his father had seen him and turned away anyway. That night, Matthew didn't sleep, and he didn't show up in court the next morning. Mari sat beside Gerald, dressed in a simple gray dress, her hair pulled back into a neat bun. Her hands rested on the folded copy of Alex's final letter. Across the aisle, Harold sat alone. Matthew's chair was empty. Judge Thompson read from a prepared statement. "This court finds no credible evidence of undue influence. The documentation presented, including Mr. Kensington's handwritten codicil, the video testimony of his legal state of mind, and consistent legal structuring of his estate, confirms that the will is valid." She looked directly at Mari. "As such, Mari Brooks is affirmed as legal guardian of Alexander Kensington Jr. and trustee of the Kensington estate until the heir reaches majority." There was a pause, and then the judge added, "I suggest all parties consider the human impact of this decision. Money and blood may start a family, but love and honor, keep it." Mari's hand flew to her mouth. Gerald placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. The courtroom was still, and then, quietly, Isabella began to clap. Others followed. Not thunderous, not performative, just real. It didn't take long for the ruling to make national news. Mari Brooks wins full guardianship. Kensington will upheld. Baby heir remains with trusted surrogate. The op-eds changed tone too. One headline from a major outlet read, "The woman who didn't want a throne, but earned it anyway." Mari stayed silent in the media. No new statements. No interviews. She didn't need them, because in her arms, she had the only thing that mattered. Within 2 weeks, Kensington Enterprises' internal audit confirmed what Mari and Gerald already suspected. Matthew had misused corporate resources. Not enough to bring formal charges, but enough for the board to remove him from his position permanently. The final meeting was short. Matthew didn't fight it. He simply stood, straightened his cuffs, and walked out. When he reached the building's revolving doors, he paused, and for one flicker of a moment, he looked up at the tower bearing his family's name. Then he turned and disappeared into the crowd. 3 weeks later, Isabella showed up at the guest house with a curious request. "Would you let me be his godmother?" Mari looked up, stunned. "I know we're not sisters," Isabella said softly. "I know this whole thing has been impossible, but I still remember what it felt like to have a family, even if it was broken." Mari handed her baby Xander. He giggled, reaching for Isabella's necklace. "You already are," Mari said. They sat together under the baby's mobile and talked about the future. Not the legacy of a billionaire, but the legacy of compassion. Though the probate trial was over, one final legal hurdle remained: guardianship confirmation. While Alex's will was powerful, family court had to finalize the arrangement. A separate hearing was required to determine not money, but custody. This time, the focus was entirely on baby Xander. "Best interest of the child," Judge Thompson reiterated. "That's the guiding star." Mari sat quietly at the petitioner's table, heart thudding. On the other side, surprisingly, sat Isabella, not in opposition, but in support. And beside her was no one. Matthew hadn't even filed a new petition. Harold Miller was gone too. When asked if the court had received any new challenges or appeals, the clerk confirmed, "None filed, Your Honor." The storm, at last, had passed. Judge Thompson folded her hands and looked directly at Mari. "Miss Brooks, you've demonstrated consistency, care, and an ability to prioritize this child's welfare amid extraordinary pressure. The court sees no reason to remove custody from the guardian named by the child's father and affirmed through conduct and evidence." She leaned forward. "You are hereby granted permanent legal guardianship of Alexander Kensington Jr." The gavel hit the block. Mari's breath left her body. This time, she did cry. Later that evening, back at the estate, Mari sat in the rocking chair she'd come to claim as her own. Xander was fast asleep in her arms, a soft sigh rising and falling with each tiny breath. Linda poured tea in the kitchen. Isabella had returned to the main house. The wind outside rattled the old windows, but the fire inside glowed. Mari whispered to the baby, "I never thought I'd be here." She wasn't talking about the mansion. She was talking about motherhood. "I was supposed to be a bridge," she murmured. "Just a vessel." Xander stirred and curled closer. "But you made me a home." The next morning, Gerald brought a package. "I found these in Alex's private safe," he said. "Figured you'd want them." Inside were letters, handwritten ones, addressed to both Matthew and Isabella, never delivered. Mari sat alone that night and read them. To Matthew, Alex had written, "I wanted to believe in you. I really did. But every time I gave you the keys, you wrecked the car. Maybe I failed you first. But I can't trust my legacy to someone who still believes love is earned only through inheritance." To Isabella, he wrote, "You were my softness, my melody. I should have told you the truth about your birth. I didn't because I feared it would break you. But I see now, you're stronger than I gave you credit for." Mari wept softly. Even in death, Alex was trying to make peace. Maybe in time his children would too. Over the next few months, Mari began restoring parts of the Kensington estate, not for beauty, but for purpose. The East Wing became a small library and reading space, with a children's room. The garden was opened for local schools to visit. She partnered with her old elementary school and brought buses of kids from underfunded districts. She established a nonprofit using a portion of the trust's philanthropic arm, the Xander Foundation for Motherhood and Justice. And every Friday, she cooked dinner herself for the staff. "They used to eat alone," she told Linda once. "Not anymore." Wealth hadn't changed her values. It had only expanded their reach. Mari hugged him. "You're early." "Graduated early," he grinned. "Finished my HVAC cert." "That's amazing." He looked around the estate. "This still freaks me out," he admitted. "I keep expecting someone to tell me I'm trespassing." Mari smiled. "You belong here. Always." Trevor pulled a small box from his coat pocket. Inside was a charm necklace. Cheap, simple. A tiny metal pendant that read, "Big Sis, I know you've been getting diamonds and gold, and God knows what else," he muttered. "But I wanted you to have something that reminds you who you were before all this." Mari's eyes welled up. "I'll wear it every day." Months passed. Then, one rainy spring morning, an envelope arrived. No return address, just her name. Mari opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single page, signed in a hand she now knew well. "Mari, I hated you, but I hated myself more. You reminded my father of what he didn't see in me. Or maybe what he saw and couldn't fix. I've left the country. There's nothing here for me. But I'm leaving something in the past too. The fight, the bitterness, the blame. Raise him right. Don't let him become me. Matthew." No apology. But also, no venom. Mari folded the letter, placed it in a drawer beside the baby's birth certificate, and exhaled. It wasn't closure, but it was enough. Spring melted into summer. Xander grew fast. At 9 months, he started pulling himself up on furniture. At 10 months, he said "ma" for the first time, not quite directed at Mari, but close enough that Linda burst into tears. By 11 months, he was crawling with reckless abandon. Mari had gone from being the surrogate to the trustee, and now simply mommy, at least, in the coos and babbles of a child who didn't know what the world once said about her role. She didn't correct him. She didn't need to. Love didn't need titles. Gerald Park invited her to dinner, a private gathering at his modest country house. Just a few close friends, he'd said. But when Mari arrived, she found herself seated with several powerful names, heads of philanthropic institutions, legal experts, women who had broken ceilings in finance and law. Gerald made the introductions. "This," he said, "is Mari Brooks. She doesn't just hold a legacy, she's redefining one." One of the women, an African-American judge from New Jersey, leaned in. "I followed your case," she said. "You made it okay for the system to rethink what makes someone worthy." Mari didn't know what to say. "You've got a voice now," the woman added. Use it. Later that summer, Mari stood on a podium in front of a packed hall at a maternal health conference. She wore a deep green dress and no jewelry except her brother's charm. She didn't speak like a politician or a CEO. She spoke like Mari Brooks. I wasn't born to wealth, she began. I was born to a woman who made dollar store meals stretch across 3 days and told me bedtime stories when the lights got cut off. Laughter, nods. I didn't plan to be a mother. I planned to be a bridge. But love changes the destination. She paused. And sometimes legacy isn't about bloodlines. It's about who stays when the storm hits, who fights, who shows up for someone who can't yet walk. Thunderous applause. Somewhere in the crowd, Isabella wiped a tear. 1 year after Alex's death, Mari returned to his grave, not in ceremony, but in silence. She brought flowers, a letter, and baby Xander, now toddling beside her. She crouched near the marble headstone, letting the child place a single lily on the ground. I kept my promise, she whispered. The boy babbled, throwing a fistful of grass into the air. Mari laughed softly. He's wild, she said to the stone. You'd have loved him. And then she sat with him, letting the summer wind carry their silence into the trees. The Kensington board called a special meeting. This time, Mari wasn't there to defend herself. She was invited, unanimously, to join the board officially. As chair of the Kensington Foundation, not for corporate profit, but for stewardship of its philanthropic branch, she accepted, and began funneling portions of the endowment into causes Alex had once quietly supported: educational, scholarships, maternal care for working-class families, housing support for former foster youth. She didn't do press releases. She just sent results. Legacy, she told a board member, shouldn't be inherited. It should be built. On the first anniversary of baby Xander's birth, the Kensington estate filled not with lawyers, but laughter. There was cake, handmade by Mari's former co-worker from her office temp days, a balloon arch in blue and gold, folded chairs across the garden lawn. No designer gowns, no media, just family. Trevor grilled hot dogs. Isabella read a poem. Linda taught 2 toddlers how to do the electric slide. When it came time to sing, Mari held Xander close. He tried to grab the candle. She laughed and blew it out for him. In that moment, surrounded by the oddest collection of new and old friends, Mari realized something. She wasn't an outsider anymore. She was home. It took Mari months to get used to the sound of silence in the mansion. The absence of yelling. The absence of tension. No more lawyers arriving with thick files. No more hostile glances from household staff wondering if she was a temporary guest or permanent resident. Now, they knew, Mari wasn't leaving, and she wasn't trying to erase Alex Kensington's legacy. She was living it, protecting it, expanding it. She walked the halls with baby Xander in her arms, whispering stories about his father. Your daddy was complicated, she would murmur. Smart, proud, wounded. But he loved you. Fiercely, quietly, entirely. Sometimes she caught glimpses of Alex in Xander's gaze, that furrowed brow, that steely focus. But she also saw softness that had never been allowed to live in Alex. Maybe it had skipped a generation. One morning, the estate gates rang with a name Mari hadn't heard in months. Catherine, Alex's ex-wife, the woman whose lies had triggered so many of the battles Alex tried to solve in death. Gerald called Mari before letting her in. She says she doesn't want a confrontation. She just wants 5 minutes. Mari agreed. They met in the West Garden. Catherine was older now, more fragile looking than Mari remembered from the old photos Isabella had shared. Her designer sunglasses couldn't hide the weathering of pride or pain. I didn't come to argue, Catherine said, or apologize. She looked at baby Xander from a distance. Wanted to see what my children were replaced with. Mari's lips tightened. They weren't replaced. Your husband gave his son a chance to live outside the weight of broken promises. Catherine studied her. He always said I underestimated people. Mari didn't reply. Catherine hesitated, then said quietly, Tell him, I'm sorry. Mari's gaze didn't soften, but she nodded once. Catherine left without a scene, and Mari never saw her again. Months later, Matthew filed one last motion, a quiet one, in a different court. He requested that all remaining inheritance funds in his name be transferred to a charitable trust. not as an act of peace, not publicly. But something about the motion, quietly signed, not leaked to the press, told Mari that something in him had shifted. She sent no message. She asked for nothing more. The war was over, and in its place was something the Kensingtons hadn't known in years. Stillness. One evening, Linda brought Mari a wrapped gift. Mari opened it to find a double-sided frame. On one side, a picture of baby Xander, laughing in the grass. On the other, Mari, standing in front of the courthouse the day she won guardianship, baby in her arms, chin high, eyes clear. "He'll want to know who fought for him one day," Linda said. "This way, he never forgets." Mari traced the glass gently. "He won't have to remember. I'll make sure he never has to fight like that at all." They started calling her the surrogate queen in magazines, half mocking, half admiring. But Mari didn't read the articles. She preferred books from the estate library. She read business texts by candlelight, legal statutes during Xander's nap time, parenting journals and memoirs by women who'd raised empires alongside babies. She never raised her voice at the board table. But when she spoke, they listened. Her policies were firm but human. She instituted maternity benefits for female employees of Kensington Enterprises, including on-site childcare and subsidized adoption support. "You're changing the face of this company," one of the board members remarked. "No," she replied. "I'm revealing its heart." One night, Mari sat in the nursery with Xander fast asleep against her chest. She pulled out the leather-bound journal she kept beside the crib. Inside, in neat cursive, she wrote a letter to him. "My dear son, I didn't know how much I could love until I held you. I didn't know how much I could fight until they tried to take you. You weren't supposed to be mine. But God had a different plan. Your father believed in second chances, and you, little boy, were his. But you were mine too, not by blood, but by promise. You made me into more than I ever thought I could be. A protector, a leader, a mother. And someday, when you ask me why they fought so hard to keep us apart, I'll tell you the truth. Because love always threatens power, but it wins anyway. Mommy." She closed the book, kissed her child's forehead, and turned out the light. "If this journey moved you, if you believe that family is something we fight for, not something we inherit, then don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Mr. Asher Stories. Because here, every tale is a lesson, and every lesson is worth remembering." Exactly 1 year, and 1 day after the final guardianship ruling, the Kensington estate looked different. It was still grand. The architecture still whispered old money and old secrets. But the energy was new. There were toys in the garden, laughter in the hallways, and in the grand dining room, once reserved for negotiations and tense family dinners, volunteers from the Xander Foundation sorted care packages for local mothers in need. Mari stood at the head of the table, giving quiet instructions, Xander strapped to her chest in a navy blue baby carrier. Someone snapped a photo. The image would later appear in a feature article titled, "The Woman Who Rewrote the Meaning of Inheritance." Mari's next project was personal. With the board's blessing, she repurposed one of the unused Kensington properties, a 3-story townhouse on the Upper East Side, into a school for young mothers finishing their education. They called it Brooks House. It offered daycare, night classes, and scholarships for single women navigating both diapers and diplomas. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Isabella stood beside Mari, holding the scissors with her. The two women, once adversaries, now posed side by side. "A year ago, we were on opposite sides of a courtroom," Isabella said during her speech. "Now, we're building something together." Mari smiled, eyes shining. "This is what Alex always wanted," she whispered. "He just never got to see it." For the first time in years, Kensington Enterprises ran without scandal. Mari didn't lead the business side directly. She appointed a young, capable CEO who had worked for the company for over a decade. But as trustee, she reviewed every major initiative. She didn't micromanage. She asked questions. She expected answers. And when board members tried to play power games, they quickly learned something. She didn't bluff. She didn't yell. But she never backed down from what was right. "She rules like a schoolteacher," one analyst joked. "But she governs like a queen." During a quiet afternoon at the estate, a journalist from The New Yorker arrived for an exclusive portrait. He asked to photograph Mari in the drawing room where the will had first been read aloud. She agreed. He posed her in the center, standing beneath the massive oil painting of Alexander Kensington himself. Mari wore a soft gray blouse and no makeup, baby Xander on her hip. The photograph would become iconic. The caption read, "She was just the surrogate. Now she is the future." Mari didn't forget where she came from. She brought her old best friend, a nurse named Kiana, to the estate for a weekend visit. "I'm still trying to wrap my head around you having a library bigger than our old high school," Kiana joked, staring wide-eyed at the foyer. Mari poured tea. "I still burn toast. I still get nervous when people in suits say my name. But yeah," she smiled. "This place, it's different now." Kiana nodded. "Because you're different?" "No," Mari said. "Because I belong now, Ms. Brooks. There are very few people I've admired in both law and life. You are one of them. Alex made a bold decision, but you made it the right one. May your integrity always outrun your inheritance. With deep respect, Gerald Park." She framed it in her study, right above a photo of her, Xander, and Isabella in the Kensington Gardens. It was a new kind of portrait, a new kind of dynasty. One night, after putting Xander to bed, Mari sat alone on the veranda. The stars blinked above the estate, like reminders of prayers answered, and battles survived. Isabella joined her, barefoot, holding 2 mugs of tea. "You ever miss a man?" Isabella asked. Mari smiled. "Sometimes, but not in the way people expect." "How do you mean?" Mari looked out across the lawn. "I don't miss being completed. I miss being understood." There was silence. "I think," Isabella said finally, "that's what my father saw in you. Someone who didn't ask to be rescued. Someone who could stand next to him, not behind him." Mari didn't answer, but she reached out and Isabella took her hand. And for once, there was no competition. Just connection. Months later, a former Kensington executive published a tell-all memoir, laced with half-truths, bitter assumptions, and twisted accounts of Mari's rise. Headlines roared for days. Social media debated, but Mari didn't respond. Not publicly. Instead, she held a private panel discussion at Brooks' house, inviting mothers, journalists, law students, and activists to a dialogue about women, power, and public perception. "Let them write books," Mari said softly that evening. "We'll write policies." The media storm passed, and Mari's silence rang louder than any statement ever could. Mari hadn't returned in years, but now, with a toddler's hand gripping hers and Linda trailing behind with flowers, she stood at the modest grave of Renee Brooks. The headstone was chipped, the grass overgrown, but the memory, untouched. Mari crouched down and placed the flowers gently. "Hey, Mama," she whispered. "I did something crazy. I became a mother. Not the way you did, not how anyone expected. But I get it now." She looked at Xander, who was stuffing dandelions in his pocket. "I get what it means to choose someone every day, to sacrifice, to stay." She didn't cry. She just smiled. And for the first time, the pain felt light. Trevor surprised her with something unusual on her birthday. He wasn't rich. He wasn't poetic. But he knew her heart. He handed her a small box over lunch at the mansion. Inside was a simple silver band with a single engraving, chosen, not assigned. "It's not an engagement ring," he said quickly. "Just a reminder of how far you came, of what you didn't wait to be given." Mari slid it on her right hand. "It's perfect," she said. And she meant it. It wasn't anything extraordinary. No grand revelation, just a moment on a Tuesday afternoon, while Mari read him a bedtime story. He looked up, tilted his head, and said, "Home." Mari blinked. "Home?" she whispered. He smiled and nodded, snuggling deeper into her chest. She didn't ask where he learned it. She just held him closer. And in that small, perfect moment she knew everything she'd fought for, every courtroom, every insult, every sleepless night, had led to this. This tiny, one-syllable confirmation. Years later, people would ask what her secret was. How did a woman who started with nothing become one of the most respected names in American philanthropy? She always gave the same answer. "I didn't ask for power. I asked for purpose." And when the power came, I let it serve the purpose. She never wore designer gowns to gale us, never let her son call her queen even though tabloids did. She was simply mommy to him. Mari Brooks, the woman who came to be a surrogate and stayed to become the soul of an empire. A decade later, a photograph was taken at a global summit on humanitarian innovation. 5 women were seated on the stage, each from a different continent, each with a story the world had once dismissed. At the center sat Mari Brooks, now in her 40s, graceful, poised in a navy pantsuit. She spoke not with power, but with conviction. When asked what had shaped her most, she didn't mention wealth. She said, "Love. Not the kind that makes headlines, the kind that fights for you in silence, the kind that chooses you even when the world does not." The room stood still, and for a moment, the noise of legacy bowed before the quiet strength of love. When Xander turned 10, Mari gave him a wooden box with a letter inside. "My son, by now, you know some of the story. How you came to me, what the world once said. But here's what I want you to remember most. You were never a mistake. You were the miracle that taught me how to lead, how to love, how to lose and rise again. They said I was just a surrogate, but I was never just anything. I was your mother. Then, now, always. Go build something good. Go be someone kind. That's your real inheritance. Mom." He read it every year on his birthday, and he never forgot. Years later, Isabella Kensington published a memoir titled Daughter of the House. In it, she chronicled her own growth, from being a bitter heiress afraid of loss, to a woman who finally understood what strength looked like in someone else. Her most quoted passage read, "Mari Brooks didn't steal our legacy. She saved it from drowning in its own arrogance. She gave it a soul. And when the world tried to shame her into silence, she built a kingdom where love spoke louder than wealth ever could." The book became a bestseller, not because of gossip, but because of truth. In the Kensington estate, where family portraits once only honored bloodlines, a new painting was unveiled. Mari sat in a rocking chair, gray now speckled in her hair, a soft smile on her face. Xander stood behind her, a young man in a navy suit. On her lap sat a toddler, her grandchild. The plaque beneath read, "Matriarch, Reformer, Mother, Mari Brooks Kensington." And for the first time in the estate's 150-year history, the centerpiece was a woman who had not been born into the name, but who had earned it, with grace, pain, and unstoppable love. In boardrooms across the country, Mari's policies were replicated. Her speeches were quoted in textbooks. Her school, Brooks House, became a national model. And when someone asked her what the future looked like, she smiled. "Power used to be about walls," she said. "Now, it's about tables, and who gets invited to sit." She never raised a throne. She built bridges, and on those bridges walked mothers, daughters, caretakers, sons, carrying futures that once seemed unreachable. Because she had made a path. Because she stayed. Because she chose love. Mari died at 89. Not as a tabloid queen or a corporate titan, but as a mother, a builder, a legacy. At her memorial, attended by thousands, her granddaughter, now a lawyer, read Mari's own words, "You do not need permission to matter. You do not need wealth to change the world. You only need love, fierce enough to stand." The audience wept, and the story of a woman who was once just the surrogate became the parable of a queen who ruled without a crown and left behind a world changed by her courage. If this story touched your soul, reminded you of the power of quiet resilience, or made you believe in second chances, then take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Asher Stories. Because here, the most unlikely voices often tell the most unforgettable tales.